Well, I've been moving colonies because I want to relocate them for winter. 7 years ago, I met a lady who had honeybees, and she gave me a bunch of advice. And I bought Italians the following spring. Using her advice, everything seemed to work. She said you can move a hive up to 3 feet, any more than 3 feet, and the bees will not find it. So with these Foley's Russian bees, they're second generation from Foley's Russian bees, I was moving one hive width at a time, and they would make no attempt whatsoever to find their original hive, and they would go back to the same location. So what ended up happening was the ones first in line lost a lot of workers, and here it is August, and there's only one more week of August to go, and we've had temperatures at night in the 40s, and I screwed up. I wasn't really doing my job like I should have. I should have checked before the evening came, and it got cold, and I lost a couple frames of brood and a couple of my colonies. So I decided to go ahead and move all of them, and what I'm doing here, I've got a deep setup. I fill that up, and then I take it over here where I have the original colonies, and then I turn it upside down because I have a screen over a hole here, and see, they're still really not all that bright. I turn it upside down because bees naturally go up, and then they'll see the light here and they'll come out that hole, because if I left it like this, the way it was over there, they would never ever figure out how to get out of there. These Russian bees are offspring from the Russian bees. They're not really all that bright. When I had Italians, everything seemed to work just fine. That addition there used to be a deck, and I was still doing my mating nukes on the east side of the house, and then I would put them on these posts, and I would head them towards the garage, head west, and the ones that weren't big enough to stay outside, I'd put them in the window over here on my house. But then I got to a point where I had too many with Foley's Russian bees that one winter, all of them, because the mites took a toll on them. They weren't resistant to mites, so they almost got wiped out before winter, and they got really small, so I had to build an addition on here, and I put them in the window, and I managed to save about 35% of them, and I've been rebuilding colonies for 2 years now since that. Pretty bad experience having Foley's Russian bees. I would never ever recommend that to anybody. Just any honeybee that's a good quality. You don't need Russian. It uses formic acid. It works. I didn't have any losses last winter. The thing is, you can't use it when it's hot, above 85. If you put it in there, it will kill the bees because the fumes would be too strong. And anything under 50 degrees is too cold and it won't be effective. And I want to do the double 10 days with one pad and 10 days with the next, versus doing 2 pads for 14 days, because I think that's a little strong on bees. So I need 20 days between 85 degrees and 50. And last September, it was hot in mid-September, and as soon as it cooled off, I stuck the Formic Pro in, and before 20 days were up, it was really cold. And we're expected to have a cold winter again. I don't see any global warming going on. I think what's happening is the cold air is pushing all the heat down south, and everybody down south thinks, oh, this is global warming. It's not global warming. It's the grand solar minimum, where the cold air is pushing all the heat down south. So anyway, it takes a while. It'll take me all day, probably tomorrow. I just keep going over and get one deep of bees and bring it over here to flip it over and wait till that empties, and I go over and get the other one, keep switching them. And over there I still have some mating nukes. I have another week to go. See how many laying queens you get out of those, and then I'll start moving these west, and I'll get those over there next to the garage. I will let you know how things go. Yeah, every situation is different. I used to have a bunch of peach trees here. I lost a lot last year. I only have one left. I lost like 10 of them or so from spider mites, and I didn't want to do anything to the spider mites because I was afraid it would affect the bees. So I never had room to put a bunch of mating nukes here, and I was also worried about getting too hot here. There's no shade here, so that's why I've always done it on the east side of the house, but then you have to move them. So I don't know if I'm going to do the same thing next year or not, but next year, if I can get these bees through winter, I'm going to have enough to put different locations to make honey, and I will be trucking them back and maybe putting them against the garage or whatever. I'm just taking it one day at a time. All right, thank you.